Being a kid that grew up in a town of 30,000 people and then getting transplanted to Boston and being the figurehead for a professional football team, it was pretty heady stuff.
And for their number one pick, New England selects Drew Bledsoe, quarterback.
Bledsoe with 44 completions, a new league record.
But, I think through it all, the fact that I had the roots in this small town, allowed me to do that and hopefully keep my head about me for the most part.
Bad news for New England fans. Drew Bledsoe was rushed to the hospital today after sustaining a terrible injury. So what do you think Drew Bledsoe's gonna do next? He's still healthy, but his fans are wondering. We're all wondering.
Everybody wonders where he got his throwing arm, and he did get his athletic ability from his mother.
You just keep talking, big boy. I like it.
I'm Mac Bledsoe, short for John McQueen.
My name is Barbara.
Yeah, and we started dating in the 7th grade.
You know what? He was born the way he is now.
And he was an old soul.
Yeah, the first day of junior high, we walked together into the school, and he said with every ounce of sincerity, Mom, this is the day I've lived my whole life for. This is the day I get to play tackle football.
Drew came home after about 3 days of practice, and he was sort of down in the dumps, and I said, "What's up, kid?" And he said, "Oh, Coach told me today that I had no future as a quarterback. I had to pick another position." And I said, "Son, I've been telling you since you were old enough to understand the words that the ideas in your head would rule your world. Nobody, not a teacher, not a coach, nobody can put an idea in your head without your permission and without your participation."
Bledsoe back to pass. Big rush. He throws it. It's complete. Holy cow! Drew Bledsoe! Touchdown! Walla Walla!
When we were in New York at the draft pick, he said to me, "You know, Mom, there are thousands of young football players in this country who have the skills that I have. The reason that I'm going to be the number one draft pick is what's in my head, and it's what Mac taught him."
The thing about being drafted number one is that you're going to the worst team. We really turned the culture in New England. I'd been the franchise quarterback there for 8 years and started to build the foundation for what became ultimately a dynasty. There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that goes into that.
Okay, it's 3rd down. It's a big play for New England. They need 10 for a first, and Bledsoe's running it. Oh, is he hit?
Wow, that was some tackle.
Look at Drew.
Yeah, number 92 with nearly 300 pounds just slammed into Bledsoe.
Adam called, and he had been in the ambulance when they took Drew to the hospital, and he said, "Mommy, he almost died. He was just yelling. He said, 'Mom, he almost died. He almost died.'"
But if Adam had not been there that day, Drew would have died. Because Adam went to the security officer and said, I know my brother and he is hurt. You get an ambulance and you get it here now. And that was the timing that had to happen for him to survive that injury.
All of a sudden, for the first time since, seventh grade, I wasn't the quarterback. And I felt betrayed. I really felt like I'd given enough to the organization that I was owed this job.
But he said, I got up at the start of the season and I told the members of that team that I was going to give my best. So I'm going to go back down to the stadium 45 minutes before anybody else and watch 45 minutes of film that nobody else watches. And I'm going to score a perfect score on my game plan test. And I'm going to find opportunities to put my teammates up. And if what they've got for me to do is to be the backup quarterback and run the scout team, well, the defense better get ready to get better because they're going to play against an all-pro every day at practice.
It was really difficult, but I also was raised in a way where, when you sign up and say you're going to do something, you do it.
The morning that he came home after he'd been benched, he said to his dad the next morning, Dad, I got up this morning and looked in the mirror. I like that man.
When I got hurt in 2001, that was the first time I was slapped in the face with football mortality. It was like, oh wow, maybe this thing is not going to last forever. Plus, while I was hurt and not playing, we were drinking a lot of wine around the house.
That's the ironic part of it, is when he was injured, started drinking more wine and started collecting wine.
There were a lot of guys, honestly, that were getting into wine. Some of the linemen and actually a bunch of the linebackers.
I watched because I was probably either pregnant or nursing at the time. But him and his friends, they'd bring over bottles of wine, all different price points.
For fun, we would put a bunch of wines on the table in paper bags. We would taste through them all. Fancy, expensive stuff from California, from Bordeaux, from Argentina. And just out of curiosity, I would put something from Walla Walla into the lineup, just see how we were doing. Well, every time we did that, when we unveiled the bottles at the end, the Walla Walla wine would win.
And I'm sure that was kind of like, it's interesting. They're making good wine out of Walla Walla.
And for me, it was like, oh, wow, my little hometown's actually doing something special.
I kind of feel like that's when the passion came.
And I got to go live out my childhood dream. I got to be a professional football player for 14 years. But I was really ready to see what was next and see if I could have a second act, see if I could start over and start with just a piece of dirt and create something real that, was not based on my right arm. Would you be interested in a new deal? I finished playing ball in 2006 and decided to double back to my hometown and start a winery.
That day in New York, he said, I am the best football player in this country. And I think he says today, I am one of the best winemakers in the world. I don't know how you can say that without it sounding like it's a big ego thing, but it's not for him. It's speaking a fact that he's been taught by his dad, that you choose the idea and then that gives you the power to pursue it.
Drew is very careful to pick ideas that get him where he wants to go.
In the mid-2000s, there was a handful of celebrity athlete type wine projects, and they were all pretty mediocre. And so there was that major stigma attached that, oh, it's a football player, I don't want to drink that, it's not real wine. And so you really had to get over that hurdle.
And that was why when we first launched, that's why we called it Doubleback. We didn't call the first wine, it was not Bledsoe.
We bought a bare piece of property, developed that into a world-class vineyard, hired a great winemaker, and then you continued to build a business that was based on the success of the wine quality, not just treating the wine bottle like a shoe endorsement. It wasn't slap your name on it and try to sell a bunch of mediocre juice just because you were a great football player.
As a competitor, I was never had any desire to get into something and be average at it.
You know, there's thousands of wineries right here in Washington State, and I think wine is made in every state in the U.S. now.
It's the most competitive industry in the world by the number of products that are out there. There's something like 50,000 unique bottles of wine made worldwide every year.
It's an incredibly challenging industry to be in, but also to be at the top.
And that very first vintage, when we launched it in 2010, was named Top 100 Wines in the World by Wine Spectator. So we were off to a pretty good start. What we try to accomplish with our wine is a combination of power and finesse. One of our wine critics has said it's like a linebacker that's dancing ballet. The crazy thing is we're in now our 17th year, which to us feels like a long time, but in the world of wine, we are brand new. Went to Châteauneuf-du-Pape in France and visited with one lady, her family. They planted their vineyards originally in the 1400s when they built the castle. And so, yeah, when you get into wine, it's always with the intent of building something that's gonna live far beyond you. This vineyard in particular, this is the one that we got out with our family, with the kids when they were young back in 2007 and put vines in the ground with our own hands. Our mission statement is to create genuine happiness for our customers and ourselves. We hope that with the emotion we're creating is joy and special moments.
Drew, I think, understood that through football. You're going to create a lot of happiness for those fans, and it's no different in wine.
I think he feeds off making people happy, and he knows in order to do that, he has to do all this in the right way by being the person that he is.
In our family, we talk about the ripple of your life. You know, you're plunked down and I think the ripple of his life will be immense because his purpose is to have a big ripple.
That's where it all started. Started in the dirt. This is the foundation of a generational business that makes us happy and hopefully brings pleasure to a lot of people. So this is a sacred place to us for sure.